What's happening, family? It is your man, CRB Jr., Cordy Brown Jr. here at Motown Mafia Podcast. And if you're on YouTube, shout out. Make sure you're hitting that like, share, and subscribe button at Big Boss Filmworks at YouTube. And we are here with a very special guest and a good friend and a good business partner. All of the above. What's happening, Scott?
How you doing, CB? Thanks for having me, man.
Always.
Happy holidays to the Brown family and the Field Marshal and Big Lou and Little Eddie and that whole crew.
Oh, family, yeah. You know, Scott is he has been with the kids called a day oneer with the family and all on this project. Can you believe, dude? 10 years.
I know, man.
10 years. Cuckoo, right?
I can still remember in my first round of interviews when I started my research in 2005. This was before I met Courtney and Eddie and Courtney's dad. But I can remember sitting with an FBI agent and a Southfield Police Department detective, retired Southfield Police Department detective, and we were talking about some stuff from the era of the 1970s and stuff, and I think we were talking about Marzette and then Usher, and then the police officer was like, you know, you can't talk about that era without talking about the biggest real name of that era, at least around here, meaning where he was in Southfield, right, without talking about Eddie and Courtney.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew about Eddie and Courtney from reading that famous front page story in the newspaper for my research, but I didn't really know the ins and outs or the particulars. And he started to school me on it. So then when I had an opportunity to hook up with the real deal Holyfield, it was like they're gonna color it up even more, and
the rest became history. So, and if you have not, you must see Scott. Definitely, besides being with us from the beginning, always we were pitching and self-distributed in the book, Motown Mafia, Ben Mars over Kingpin's Kid. And he's featured in the award-winning, critically acclaimed Motown Mafia documentary.
And they did it the right way. Eddie and Courtney, they were gentlemen gangsters that understood that business was business, and bottom line is all that really counts, and all the fighting and fussing and bloodshed and rivalries and jealousies. All it does is detract from your bottom line. The whole point is to get up and get out. It ain't to wallow in misery, in gangland misery. What's the point of becoming a powerhouse if you got to be constantly worrying about your best friend that's stabbing you in the back?
And on that note, that even how it transcends into what we're all doing now. We reach out every click in the city, whether it's YBI, Pony Down, PA. We're good because the one thing about Pop was he just, and all the way back to Eddie's day.
Yeah.
They just wanted to get money with guys.
Well,
and so
we can get into the Black Mafia family stuff, but from some of my personal interviews with Demetrius Flannery from prison, he talks about he's a student of the game, if you will.
Right.
He's someone that considers himself a historian, not just the history of the American underworld, but the history of the Detroit underworld. And he's not shy in saying that the blueprint for Black Mafia family was this composite or this blending of YBI, Davis Family Gang, and Eddie and Courtney.
Yeah.
Those three organizations, he wanted to take the best of all three of those organizations and combine them into what became Black Mafia family. So,
and other than that, shout out to Meech, free Meech. But we got to definitely get in that BMF.
For a group that, for all intents and purposes, took over the entire nation's drug game for a period of time and did it really without any bodies.
Yeah, no, they were business guys.
Not to say that
bodies
there weren't bodies,
but that wasn't their hustle.
Could be connected to Black Mafia family. There were, I actually did a story about it recently. But most of those homicides or most of those deaths were, club altercations. You bumped into me and disrespected me. We're not fighting over territory or the organization like what happened to YBI where it split in half, and you had a war between Baby Ray Peoples and Butch Jones. You know, that never. It actually
did happen
with YB or with the Black Mafia family. It happened. Just you didn't have any bloodshed.
Which happened because even in the best business, sometimes people go different directions.
Yeah.
But Uncle Butch was out at Wasam's and ran into T.
Yeah.
And he quoted, according to Unc, said kind of the same kind of thing. He was like, kind of introduced himself, and T was kind of like, man, of course I know who you are. You're with Eddie Jackson and Courtney. You know that you're the man with the man.
Right.
And he's like, of course we know who you guys are. He's like, you guys were the first ones to do what we did.
Yep.
So yeah, that is cool. And they picked they picked 3 good role models there though.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like when you're building the dream team, you want to get the Magic Johnson from the Lakers and Michael Jordan from the Bulls and Larry Bird from the Celtics, and you put them all on the court, and you have the greatest of all time, and that's what happened with BMF.
So let's get into it. Well, you're involved. Can you talk about?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the projects?
Yeah. So
I've been going on with BMF.
So with the Black Mafia Family Stars Project, I've been on staff with them for a little bit over a year, maybe like 18 months. In a consulting capacity for the scripted Black Mafia Family show, and then the accompanying docuseries, companion docuseries, which will be rolling out very shortly in the next couple weeks.
Look forward to that.
And it will be. I think what they're doing right now is that they're rerunning the first season on Sundays at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
Right.
And then beginning, I believe, like December 21st. Don't quote me on it, but I that's the number. That's the date I heard. Or whatever Sunday that is in the third week of December, right before the Christmas holiday. Okay. They're going to roll out the first episode of it's going to be an 8-part docuseries. The first season of the scripted show was 8 episodes. Right. It's going to be an 8-part docuseries that will come out right after they play a repeat of the first season of the scripted show. Then they'll start rolling out the docuseries right. I mean, literally like right at like the scripted show will end at 10 o'clock, and then the docuseries will start at 10:01 on Stars.
You pleased with it, with the project?
Yeah, I'm. For the scripted thing, it's been a home run. So,
I watch every Sunday.
It's I give a shout out to Stars and G Unit Productions and Randy Huggins, the showrunner.
Detroit guy.
From Detroit, St. Martin DePores.
That's right.
Was one of the big writers on Power.
Yeah.
And that's how him and 50 became close, and he was tapped to showrun this show. And they've really done...
His mom used to coach our buddy's Little League team.
They've done such an excellent job of capturing Detroit 1987. Like, so many have tried, especially in the last handful of years. I go back to a movie that I was involved in, the White Boy Rick film,
right.
Which fell flat on its face trying to recreate Detroit in the 1980s. And I had a front row seat to that. I was a consultant on that project and was trying to tell everyone that they were making huge mistakes, and they ignored me. And again, if they would have been successful, I would have been happy to eat crow and say, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. You guys are the professionals. You guys did it a way that I didn't really understand, and at the end of the day, it was a success. But at the time, I could just see it was going to be a train wreck, and it turned out to be. But this, I just think they capture the essence of Detroit and that time period, and the every choice of the music is perfect. The tone. The way it looks, the way it feels. I think that Little Meech playing his dad has been another
genius idea,
another home run, and full transparency. They didn't ask my opinion on it, but at the time when I heard of the casting, I wasn't in favor of it.
But he came a long way. I mean, if you watch,
he's been great.
You watch episode 1 where he was at as
Yeah.
an actor, and then like by episode
Yeah.
5,
He's got
he grew into. He's a natural.
He's a natural.
He's a natural. Is what it
he
is.
commands the screen.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
gonna have a career for himself in the entertainment
for
world,
real.
whether we're talking about the music and his rap or as an actor. He takes all of that swagger that his dad had and kind of channels it into being into show business as opposed to
I'm happy for the
drug
kid.
world.
Yeah.
But at first, I honestly didn't like it at first. But, part of that might have been colored by my experience on White Boy Rick, where the casting of the character or the casting of the role White Boy Rick was very controversial, and they cast a non-actor, which turned out to be a huge mistake. So when I saw the Black Mafia Family show doing the same thing, my initial reaction was, this is a bad idea. I know it meant a lot to Demetrius. I know that Demetrius was putting a lot of pressure on them to do it. And that said, I don't think they would have done it if they didn't have faith in little Demetrius.
Right.
And that the faith proved, well sourced, because I know they put him in like an intensive acting school program.
Okay.
Where he was like,
I was gonna ask you that because I was like,
a year.
this kid didn't. They had to.
For like a year.
That's a big Lou, by the way, family. How you? What up, Lou?
As opposed to, again, and I guess this is the right way to do it, as opposed to what I saw on White Boy Rick, where they cast this kid who was literally living in a trailer park in Baltimore. They found him in his principal's office at his high school. Plucked him from this trailer park and dropped him in Matthew McConaughey's lap and said,
Play well.
They told McConaughey and Richie Merritt, who, by the way, Richie Merritt's a great kid, and none of that was his fault. You put so much pressure on this 15-year-old kid's shoulders who had never done anything before, had never acted before, and you put the weight of a $40 million studio picture on his shoulders. It was just so unfair. Yeah. And Richie is a great kid. And Richie, I saw he got cast in some stuff. It's clearly it wasn't a breakout role for him because the movie faded fast. But I see that he has been able to get cast in some other stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to find a career for him and for himself. And he wasn't bad. No. I didn't think he was bad. I just didn't think he moved the needle. Like he didn't jump off the screen.
The script,
but he wasn't horrible.
The script has some issues itself.
Well, I mean, we can get into that. They all they needed to do was just make the initial. This was the disaster that was the White Boy Rick film is a microcosm of the old saying, just paralysis by analysis. Yeah. If they just would have made the script that they bought to make, which was on the Hollywood Blacklist, which is a list that's put out every year, the 20 hottest non-produced film scripts. And it's put out by, I believe, one of the major trade publications, either Variety or Hollywood Reporter. And it's been going on for about, I think, 15, 20 years. And it's like the first week of January every year, they put this thing out called the Blacklist. And then those become the hottest scripts because they're being touted as the best unmade films. And they bought one of these scripts, and I read it, and it was brilliant. And then they spent a year and a half chopping it up and giving it to 7 other writers to mess with it. And then what you saw was what you saw, which wasn't very good.
Your doc was good. What was the doc?
Then my doc White Boy, which was a viral hit on Netflix. I'm really proud of it. It's still, when you go to Netflix, you go to documentaries. It's one of the first things you're going to see. We were number 4 overall on the whole platform for about 3 or 4 days in April of 2021. It was surreal because the project had come out 2 or 3 years before that and had been on Stars, had been on Apple TV, had been on Amazon Prime, and nobody saw it. And then the second it hit Netflix, it went viral.
That is weird.
We had 12 million people watch it in a 2-week period.
Wow.
Whoa.
So it eclipsed everything that on those other platforms in 2 weeks, right?
Well, probably in a couple days.
Yeah, a couple days,
honestly.
wow.
So, but the casting of Little Meech has been a brilliant call, and I think that this has been as negative as an experience it was working on White Boy Rick. This experience has been incredibly positive. And again, shout out to the Stars people and to Randy Huggins and the G Unit people who have welcomed me in as family and have valued my opinion and advice. And I'm really excited for the world to get a look at the docuseries because the scripted show's great, but the scripted show's scripted and it's great in the way that it's like fun and it's like you're at a carnival and you get to ride all the exciting roller coasters, but the docuseries is like I think if I'm gonna stay with this analogy, it's like the show is like the local carnival that comes every summer that you can jump on the rides and ride for a couple days.
Right.
The docuseries is like going to Disney World.
Okay, you get the whole.
You're just gonna get the full spectrum, and you're gonna get them. It's so comprehensive the way that we've been able to the opportunities we've had to stretch our legs in terms of the storytelling in the docuseries, where you're gonna get not just the most comprehensive, exhaustive analysis and chronicling of Black Mafia family from the late 60s when the Flannery family lands in Detroit from Cleveland, all the way into the 2000s, and then eventually the Operation Motor City Mafia bust. But you're going to get it from every person that was there is going to be telling you that story.
Where was the indictment unsealed? Was it in the Eastern District? It was in the Eastern District.
Avon Cohn, yes.
That's who sends Eddie, man.
Yeah.
He's been putting people in jail a long time.
He's just retired. He's 98. He's retired at 96.
Gotta be, because he sentenced Eddie back in 85.
He's Demetrius' judge, and but then he stepped away, and now Demetrius is a new judge. I'm blanking on the name.
Well, it's good for Demetrius that Judge Cohen is no longer,
and
he never had a problem. He liked giving out basketball numbers.
Yeah, and he was quite the he could be a curmudgeon. But you want to know an interesting piece of trivia? I don't know where this is coming from. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but it made me think of what we're talking about, gangsters, and Avon Cohn's name came up, and iconic gangsters, Demetrius Holloway, Eddie Jackson.
Right.
You know what piece of property Avon Cohn owns? Him and his wife own. They own the Bloomfield Plaza, which is
Maple and Telegraph,
the property where Jimmy Hoffa disappeared.
Right, it used to be Marcus Red Fox. Yeah. It's an Adiamos now.
Right, but no, that they own the strip mall.
They own the
They own the property.
Get out of here!
Yeah.
Wow.
So the property where that strip mall is, and where the restaurant is in the parking lot of that strip mall.
Yeah.
So Avon Cohn, I didn't know that until later in my research, and I found that out. I was like, wow, Avon Cohn and his wife own that piece of property, and they've owned it for quite a long time.
I give Steve's Deli a shout out.
Yeah,
all the time.
Steve's the best.
You guys send a check. That's P.O. Box 25064. Look it up online. Big Boss Filmworks. You guys can send us a check for that.
But the docuseries is going to be so rich and textured, and Demetrius is participating in it. He's doing all his interviews, obviously, from a prison phone. But all the Flannery family, excluding Terry, who we're in negotiations to get Terry to sit down for an interview. We're not sure where we stand with that right now.
Because he's home.
Yeah. But every major BMF lieutenant that is alive and did not cooperate is participating.
So I was going to ask you that. So when it all fell out, there was a Detroit contingent.
Yeah.
The Atlanta contingent.
LA contingent.
Well,
they had 23 different crews in 23 different states. The main ones were Detroit, LA, Atlanta, St. Louis,
Cali. Well, we said
LA,
You said LA.
South Carolina, what do you call it? Louisville,
So,
New York, Chicago. But yeah, the big ones were the main three really were Detroit, LA, Atlanta, and then St. Louis was like the fourth on that.
so all of those guys are involved, or
Every lieutenant,
those different.
Yeah, every lieutenant that was indicted in Operation Motor City Mafia, and it was a case that took down almost 200 people. But every lieutenant that is alive and did not cooperate is participating.
What year was that?
So Operation Motor City Mafia hit October of 2005. And it actually did not take that long to build. Despite what people might think, Black Mafia Family really wasn't on the radar of law enforcement for that long. They put themselves on the radar.
So what's
And
this?
the bust took about 18 months to build. It wasn't if you want to compare and contrast it to another big bust I covered, Operation Gamtax, which was the big bust on the Detroit La Cosa Nostra Italian mafia family. Okay. It came down in March of 1996. That was a case that had been built for like 16 years.
Wow.
So
before it led to the actual indictment.
Yeah, right. And Operation Motor City Mafia was opened in the end of 2003.
And the indictments
came in 2005. They had enough to start charging at the beginning of 2005. So it took them about a year and some change to.
And because it takes time to build these kind of cases usually. Was it me and you or the Nelly party?
Yeah. Well, the Nelly party is what literally sparked the investigation.
Right.
The Nelly birthday party.
Unpack that for the
so 2003, Demetrius is turning 35, I believe, and is throwing a birthday party. Nelly and Puffy combined to throw him the party, and there was this one not FBI. There was one DEA agent, Jack Harvey, and Jack Harvey was like, if Meech is Al Capone, Jack Harvey is Elliot Ness.
Okay.
So the only person in the DEA who was tracking BMF for an extensive period of time was Jack Harvey, who began tracking them in the mid to late 90s and had trouble getting the resources he needed to build a case. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of American Gangster, although what was said in American Gangster was bullshit, and this was true. The scene where the Richie Roberts character goes to his superiors and tries to explain to them what a huge network Frank Lucas had built,
right? And
they scoff, they scoff it. There's no way that Frank Lucas could have done this,
right.
And it turns out that in the movie, it turns out that he did. In reality, that's not really what happened. But
so shout out to Ike Atkins. God rest in peace, R.I.P. Ike.
Yeah, right.
And that's what Jack Harvey kept on running into throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, where he was trying to get a all hands on deck approach to Black Mafia Family,
and they weren't biting.
And then two big things happened. First, Demetrius decides to put up billboards throughout throughout the summer of not just in Atlanta. It was going all the way from here. Right? It was all up and down the I-75 corridor from Detroit to Atlanta. There was like 24 of them.
I just was in Atlanta. That's all Atlanta.
And there was one, and they were strategically placed too as kind of an FU to the DEA. One was placed directly across from the Atlanta DEA, and then another one was placed in the if you were in the Detroit DA office and you looked out the window, you could see it. It wasn't directly across the street from it, but it was visible from the Detroit DA office. And so the billboards start popping up. Ostensibly, they're to promote the music label.
Right.
But again, Jack Harvey knew better, and he's trying to convince the powers that be at the DA to give him a team to go after Demetrius, and it all comes to a head at this party for Demetrius' 35th birthday. They're thinking it's going to be a one-night party. So they all start Friday night at Justin's which was the
Puff's-
hot spot.
Puff's restaurant.
Puff's restaurant back then,
Right.
which was the hottest spot in Atlanta in that world.
Buckhead. Yep.
And there's a team of surveillance agents. They had brought some guys down from Detroit because Jack Harvey's trying to show them, kind of like, hey, listen, what we got here, and I'll be able to show it to you at this party. And I've talked to a couple of the agents that were down there. They're like, yeah, we thought we were coming down there for one night, and it turned out to be a 72-hour party.
Right.
So they started Justin's on Friday night, and then they all retreat to one of the estates that Black Mafia family owned in Atlanta, and they partied for the next 48 hours. And there was just a cavalcade of celebrities and athletes and actors. I heard Denzel Washington was there.
In crowd, the real in crowd.
And it really it made enough of an impact on these other D agents that were witnessing it to say, you know what, Jack, you're right. This guy is a really, really big deal that we've been underestimating. And those billboards probably weren't to promote his
record label.
And then I believe the party lasted Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I believe at the Monday morning meeting, the Operation Motor City Mafia was opened.
They put on such a spectacle that after 3 days of the DA watching them have a good time, they're like, no. These guys are the real deal. Yeah.
And then they started, so that was like late 03, but then throughout 04, it was a smart game plan. They were constantly stopping lieutenants, taking what they had on them, raiding different establishments and stash houses, but no case was coming. And bringing guys in, keeping them, maybe longer than they should to get people, they wanted to tickle the wire.
Yeah.
And people were getting real paranoid throughout 04.
So the chatter started to...
Well, why isn't there a case coming down? But there have been 15 raids.
Because those people are very patient.
Yeah. And
very patient
eventually they were able to get to Terry's guys. Two of the main Detroit guys, Pig Triplet and Playboy Sparks, got caught bringing a trailer with like 100 keys up from down south, got pulled over. That was kind of the first crack into Terry's crew. Now, neither Playboy or Pig cooperated, but there was this frenzy of rumors that Playboy was cooperating. And one of the more incriminating pieces of audio surveillance that the feds got was Terry having to jump on the phone with Pig's family and like walk them off the ledge. And in the conversation, there were some incriminating statements made about what they had been doing and who they'd been doing it for. But it was just that the call was made so Terry could try to explain to Pig's, I think, wife and his mom.
Give me a minute. We got
Don't
this.
worry.
We got
Playboy's
this.
not. Don't you think Playboy's cooperating? But he's not cooperating, and he wasn't.
Right.
But it started to create even more
chaos and confusion.
Yeah, and then they stopped a guy named Omari O-Dog McCree, who would go on to be the first inner circle member to turn. They stopped him and his driver and ended up, I think they had some birds on them and some money on them, and they confiscated it, and that tickled the wire even more. They confiscated it. They brought both. The guy's name was Jeff Lear. They bring O-Dog and Jeff Lear both in. They let O-Dog go immediately. They keep Jeff Lear there for like 3 or 4 days. And Jeff Lear wasn't cooperating at that point.
He's the pawn, though.
Right. So Omari starts to flip out. And then Omari, thinking that Jeff Lear had flipped on him, decides to cooperate even though Jeff Lear hadn't flipped on him. So Omari was the first real dent that they make into the inner circle. That's like think summer of '04. Around the same time, this was just really good luck on the part of the DEA. The Black Mafia family had a CFO, someone that handled all the financials. His name was William Doc Marshall. And Doc Marshall was not a gangster. He was a
Bean counter.
and a very, very intelligent racketeer, no question.
Okay.
But was not someone that people were afraid of. Was someone that might have been looked at as a little soft.
Okay.
But was brilliant and was the only conduit between Demetrius and Terry's crews. They were operating completely separately, with the exception of Doc Marshall handling both of the money trail for both, cleaning it up for him.
Right.
And someone got tipped off that Doc Marshall had a safe with $500,000 in it, and some stick-up kid goes in there, and this is like in the fall of '04, in the middle of a full-court press being put on by the DEA and the FBI, and Doc Marshall ends up having to kill an intruder, the stick-up kid. So he leaves a body on the ground, and the cops and the DA show up, and it was self-defense.
All right.
But they're like, well, where's the $500,000 coming from? Like, you have to. Well, I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, just having a lot of money on you is considered a crime.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like, I don't think people realize. So if you can't account for where that $500,000 in your safe came from,
You got legal issues.
Right. And Doc Marshall was someone that they could squeeze, because Doc Marshall did not want to do prison time, because someone like Doc Marshall probably wouldn't have done great in prison. So
No, that said, just to play devil's advocate, with the resources, I mean, yeah, money laundering can get you 20 years, though. I mean, yeah, it is.
No, but that he was going to be included in the Operation Motor City Mafia.
In the whole conspiracy.
Yeah, in addition to the whatever issues he had from the money that they found with the dead body in front of it.
Yeah, he might have got 5 or 6.
They had a lot of leverage on Doc Marshall.
He wasn't trying to do 5 or 6. He wasn't trying to do 5 or 6 years. Yeah.
And Doc Marshall really was the one. They probably could have survived with just O-Dog flipping.
But if the money man talks,
with Doc, they're dead to rights, and then all the Detroit guys start to flip.
Motown at its worst.
None of Meech's guys flipped. I guess you could have said Omari was, one of Meech's guys, but not. No, it was okay. One of Meech's guys flipped, I guess.
But the Atlanta contingent did not.
For the most part, the Atlanta contingent all kept their mouth shut, and the Atlanta contingent weren't caught on wires. The wires that Meech was caught on, he wasn't caught on saying anything. And Meech was never caught with drugs. They did find a ledger in one of Demetrius's estates during. Let's back up for a second. In the middle of all this going on, more heat is applied, or more heat comes down, because Demetrius ends up getting into a bar fight and killing Wolf Jones,
which happened to
which
be
was Puffy's right-hand man and bodyguard.
Right, which is crazy, because we were just speaking about that Puff and Meech had a very good relationship.
And in fact, I have DEA documents, and I've talked to DEA agents who will confirm this for me, that there is the belief, and there were informants telling the DEA throughout the 90s that Bad Boy Records was at least partially financed by the Flannery brothers.
And another guy I don't know if you're familiar with, a guy by the name of Leon Blue Jr. out of Harlem. They just called him Blue in the streets.
Yeah.
Pretty much
put up some of the money too.
Yeah.
And
shout out to Blue.
And then they also put some money into Murder Inc. with Irv Gotti. They put some money into So So Def with Jermaine Dupri. This is Demetrius and Terry. And
it's FBI, according to some.
Yeah, this is the informants telling. I have DA documents with informants saying
that
what
their
I just
money's
said.
went in those
Yeah,
directions.
Yeah, that direction, yeah. But the Wolf Jones thing, again, it was just like with Doc Marshall. It was self-defense. Demetrius was at a club in Atlanta. I believe it was Club Chaos.
That's right.
And there was a big BMF contingent in the VIP, and Wolf Jones was having a fight with his girlfriend, who knew the BMF guys. And let me also tell you that there were 2 BMF guys that were directly tied to Puffy. There was Daryl Papa Taylor, who was one of the lieutenants in BMF, who was Puffy's first cousin.
Right.
And then there was Paul P.J. Buford, who was one of the only BMF lieutenants left in prison besides me. I think there's only 3 left. There's Meech, P.J. Buford, who was the head of security for Bad Boy Records, and Fleming Daniels, Daniels, who was their third in charge, but he's in a state case on a murder. He's never coming out.
So he's not. The reason he's still in jail is not from the BMF indictment,
Right.
But
He was convicted of the BMF
But
indictment.
Meech and Meech
and PJ are the only 2 left.
and PJ's there off of that indictment.
Off the Operation Motor City Mafia indictment.
How much time did he get?
I think he got he had the largest sentence because they caught him with a gun. No one else had any weapons on them or whatever.
Right.
So I'm not sure when Buford's out date is, but Buford was the head of security for Bad Boy at the height of Bad Boy's success.
Right. Wow.
And PJ Buford was indicted and convicted of being a BMF lieutenant. So yes, there was a lot of ties between the BMF guys and Puffy, and Wolf Jones, who had been in the headlines a couple of years before that because he had been with Puffy when Puffy got arrested with Shine and J-Lo.
Right.
And that shooting. And so I've always wondered exactly what was, because it seems strange to me that tensions would have boiled so far, boiled over so much that Demetrius and Wolf Jones would end up shooting at each other.
Right.
Based on their past
history,
But-
right.
So what
Shit
the
went
police
south real
right.
quick that night.
The police report says that Wolf was having an argument with his girlfriend. His girlfriend knew a lot of the BMF guys. Wolf was possibly getting a little physical with the girl. Demetrius and his guys stepped in and said, cool down. Wolf took offense to it, and then things calmed down for a period of time. Wolf and his buddy Riz Gertie were tossed out of the club, but they were waiting at Demetrius's car for him with guns drawn when Demetrius and his bodyguard Bull came out, and they were being shot at as they were walking towards their car by Wolf Jones.
Wolf shot first, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then Demetrius and Bull returned fire
fire.
and killed both Riz and Wolf Jones. But in a search of Demetrius's, or one of Demetrius's residents, connected to that incident, because I believe Demetrius's gun to this day has never been found.
No, funny how that happened.
And they were looking for the gun. They didn't find the gun, but they found a ledger. So that was one thing that I'm not positive about the handwriting analysis or whatever. But I know that was one piece of evidence that they felt was a feather in their cap if they would have gone to trial, was that they had found a ledger in Demetrius's possession.
And they had at least 3 people willing to take the stand if he would have took it to trial, right?
Well, no, they had more. They had Doc, Omari, O-Dog, and then they had 5 major players.
They could have put
3, because they had all 3 Detroit lieutenants. So Benji Johnson, who went by the nickname Benny Blanco. Shout out to Carlito's Way.
Right.
So Benny Blanco was the skipper, I guess, the BMF boss of Detroit. He was a childhood friend of Demetrius and Terry.
Now his character's in the
There's a character in it about him in BMF called B Mickey.
right.
So Benny Blanco, and then a guy named Arnold Boyd who went by the nickname AR, and then a guy by the name of Eric Slim Bivens, who was kind of Terry's boots on the street in Detroit. And Slim, AR, and Benny Blanco all flipped.
So those guys could have actually put the Flannery brothers in the same room, probably with drugs and money.
Yeah.
And that's a bad look if you go to trial.
And Terry and Demetrius by 2004 weren't even talking. They had a falling out at Terry's 35th birthday party a year after Demetrius's, because they're about a year and a half apart.
Right.
And Demetrius was on house arrest from, I think, a parole violation of some sort, or I'm not exactly sure why he was on house arrest. It might have been related. It might have been related to the Wolf Jones thing
situation, right?
Until they got it resolved with the self-defense. He might have been charged and on bond.
Right.
And couldn't travel to Las Vegas where Terry was having the party. And they rented out a big banquet hall in Caesar's Palace. And Meech, Zoom. I guess it wasn't Zoom then, but Demetrius, had a satellite phone call that was put on, a big movie screen to address the hundreds of people that were there. And Terry, I don't know, felt slighted by it, or felt that whatever comments that Demetrius made on the satellite call addressing the people was too much about Demetrius, not enough about Terry.
Right. Some brothers,
and
just little brother, big brother.
Things had already been reaching a boiling point, because ironically Terry was very upset and making his feelings very well known on FBI surveillance of Demetrius's outlandish behavior.
And the billboards
and the billboards and the partying and the
making it rain.
Yeah, and he was dating Vivica A. Fox. He was dating Megan Good, and just living the drug dealer lifestyle, I guess, with a drug kingpin.
And Terry was like, "We aren't supposed to be on TV and in the media."
And then Demetrius started a magazine, putting his face on the cover of a magazine. I think it was called Juice. The magazine was called Juice. It lasted like a year. But so they officially fell out at that party, and this gets. I'm giving you guys a teaser for the docuseries.
Only here at Big Boss Filmworks, Motown Mafia.
This has never really been reported on, and it's gonna be talked about extensively in the docuseries. That luckily no violence erupted, but in the aftermath of that party, you had a situation in the parking lot, or in one of the parking structures at Caesar's Palace, that the two crews, Demetrius's guys that were there and Terry's guys that were there, pulled weapons on each other, and had like a standoff, and then both retreated to the estates that they had rented in the Vegas area. And again, nothing happened, but both camps were kind of preparing for a war that both camps thought the other camp was going to be coming to attack where they were.
Wow.
And again, nothing ever happened from that, but it reached the point where weapons were pulled out and pointed at each crew was pointing weapons at each other.
That's when it starts to get messy.
Yeah, and it was at Terry's birthday party. And from that point on, Terry and Demetrius stopped speaking. Wow. So that was...
you guys go in all this docuseries.
Yes.
So, it's going to be hot.
And that was in 2004. And I can give a little more... I'll give you a little more insider baseball here. They did start talking again for a period of time in around 2017, 18.
Oh, so this is after the indictment, after everybody sat down for a minute.
and it all fell apart when Terry came out from COVID.
But I mean, okay, from the outside looking in, that should be a good thing.
Yes, but if you were paying attention to Terry's behavior in his first couple weeks or months of freedom, he was acting a lot like Demetrius was circa 2003.
Yeah, but okay,
And that wasn't lost on Demetrius.
But okay, now I'm completely talking from the outside looking in. Here, the thing though, it's a difference between flossing after I've been indicted, convicted, went to jail, and now I come home and I'm balling. Then we ain't been popped yet, and if we stay off the radar, So you know, I could get how you could be like, yo, bro.
Demetrius felt like it was,
yo, bro, you doing the same shit I was doing.
Well, and Demetrius's case at that point was in front of the judge, like whether or not he was going to get the COVID out. So he felt like, hey, man, can you just kind of put this on pause until
let me get done with my. Okay, now I get that.
By you coming out and
going
flashing, and Terry started Instagram this, the minute he walked out of prison.
Right.
And that first week or two, you had, again, it was kind of like a repeat of what we saw at Puffy's birthday party. You had a diplomatic convoy of pop culture celebrities coming into Detroit to welcome Terry home and kiss the ring. Yeah. And you had a line out the door at his mama's house, at Lucille's house, the family home that they've had forever, in right on the border, like Inkster, Allen Park, Southwest Detroit.
Right.
You had a line out the door of just neighborhood fathers taking their sons there to like meet Terry, like they're going to meet LeBron James. And then you had Fabulous, and you had LL Cool J, and you had Nelly, and you had Puffy. They all came into town.
Yeah. You come see your friends when they come home, right?
And 50 gave him a Rolls Royce,
Phantom or Ghost or something,
as a welcome home present. So, and it was all being chronicled on social media. And then 50 was stirring the pot by doing kind of victory laps, co-opting the BMF, legacy and reputation. And then I don't know if you were paying attention to that, but he was like tweeting at Irv Gotti and tweeting at some other perceived rivals in the rap game, basically being like, "It's on now. My boys are home." And
50 good at he's a marketing genius when it comes to that kind of
I'm saying that was
he
just
creates some
just
hype.
Stirring up a lot of the belief that the U.S. attorney was like, I told you if you let these guys out, they're gonna act a fool.
Right.
And I got no problem saying this, and I've talked to Demetrius about this, and I said this in my interview in the docuseries. There's nothing that scares the U.S. government more than an African-American male with influence over millions of people.
That's a fact. Facts.
And Demetrius, again, we could talk about how this society idolizes criminals and, where the moral compass is on. That's beside the point. The fact is, right now, Demetrius Flannery is a voice in the African-American community. And if he was out, he'd be even more of a voice that probably rivals very, very few people in the world.
Right. I mean, why let...
And the ability to galvanize and mobilize, they sit there being like, is he going to use that for good or for bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's real.
And I think for Larry Hoover, I think
I was going to say, look, I think your point is applicable to Larry Hoover too, right?
The difference, though, is it definitely is applicable.
Okay.
The difference, though, the nuance that I see in it is that Larry Hoover, well, we know for sure he's responsible for one cold-blooded murder, and I would guess he's been responsible for dozens of cold-blooded gangland slams.
But he only convicted of one, right?
Convicted of one, right.
I mean, so a lot in our world.
But my point is,
people do 20 years for one murder all the time.
My point is, Demetrius wasn't a violent criminal, and I think Larry Hoover is or was.
Because the guy's done, 40 years?
So, yeah, Larry Hoover's been in prison since 73. He's 70 years old right now.
73. What's that? It's 27,
that's
48?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. The reason he's still locked up ain't because he killed one guy.
No, so
It's his influence
right.
and what he represents.
And then he got hit with a
he
huge
did get hit with
racketeering
another
case,
direct-
and federal racketeering case later.
While he was locked
But
up.
there was no violence involved in that.
While he was locked up.
Even though there was some fallout murders that I'm sure he had some role in. But yes, I think that's, in terms of sway over people and influence, I think yes. And the difference also, I think, is you can debate whether or not Black Mafia family still exists. There is no debate that the Gangster Disciples are probably
Still
the biggest urban street gang in America, and
whose tentacles go.
who go all across the. Right.
I was just speaking to our mutual friend. I was completely unaware. I mean, everybody knew of the Gangster Disciples. You know of them, right? But shout out to Big Mike 6'9", out of Chicago, Mike Covington. Anyway, I ended up hiring a guy. He's a huge man, which is obviously 6'9", both in height and width. But anyway, so he's comes from that neighborhood where they're the
GDs.
Yeah. And I brought him in because I was having some security issues in Atlanta with my businesses. Immediately once he got on my team, my security issues were resolved. Like immediately. So through our friendships, again, shout out to Big 6'9".
So I to your point though.
I just real quick. When he started introducing me to some of the guys, these guys were involved in like real estate, condo development. I mean, that organization.
What's the Black Mafia? I mean, it's not just drugs.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. They that's a real thing.
It ain't Crips and Bloods.
It ain't no Crips and, there you go. That's what, they are not that. They are like into
if you
every strata of the economy.
I think there's some middle ground here, because if you believe the U.S. government, Larry Hoover from his prison cell at the Supermax in Florence, Colorado, is puppeteering the entire organization. I don't think that's true.
That's not possible.
In fact, I don't think that's possible, like you just said.
Yeah.
But I do believe he still has power in the organization, is still considered the
chief,
top guy in the
chief.
organization, and still makes policy decisions to a degree that he can. And I know that there was a case in the last couple of years that I reported on where the government contends that he was involved in selecting the new GD administration for the national GD administration, and that he passed word in a Bible. But a Bible that he had written messages on was passed through a prison system to someone who,
and they got out the system to the streets.
Yeah, and then the guy that he tapped was I believe it's the first non-Chicago, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but the first non-Chicago GD to be named, the street boss or national president or whatever. And he was from Missouri. I think it was
Kansas City,
Missouri. No, not like the line, the state line between Illinois and Missouri.
Okay.
So like East St.
East
St. Louis is
East
Illinois.
St. Louis is,
on the other side of,
but on the other side of East St. Louis,
other side of East St. Louis
is East St. Louis in Missouri,
right?
Because East St. Louis, Illinois, is East.
So even if it was in Illinois, it's still not Chicago,
right?
Which is where the GDs were founded in the '60s by Hoover and David Barksdale, and then David Barksdale died of a kidney disorder.
It's a fascinating organization, though.
Yeah,
it really is.
Well, the fact that he can keep control of that organization for 50 years from behind bars is insane.
That's some gangster shit.
Yeah,
that's some gangster shit, right?
But so you're going to get a lot of those kind of details about the inner workings of BMF and the drama that maybe didn't come out in. Well, it's coming out in the TV show, but you're only seeing the stuff now from the 80s.
It's still they still got to work from the 80s into the 90s.
You can only get so much from an indictment, and from interviews with people sporadically through the years. But you're kind of bringing it all together and coalescing it into this story, and then you're getting all these little, you're filling all these little nooks and crannies and giving context to things that never had context before. Like we always knew that Terry and Meech fell out, but to be able to trace it back
to a particular event.
Yeah. And they also had a big screaming match in the courtroom on the day that they pled, which was
they pled together.
They pled together. I was there. It was supposed to be the first day of trial, and they're supposed to start selecting the jury, and the defense attorneys tell Cohen that they think that they can get, we can save the
taxpayers and everybody a lot of time and money.
They would both agree to plead to 30 years, with one condition, that they can have a meeting in your chambers to clear the air. So it was an odd request. He granted it, and within 20 seconds of the door closing, they're yelling at each other. And we're all listening to it. And I'm sitting next to some feds. And they're like, feds are like, Terry's coming over to our side, baby. That's what they were thinking. I mean, I know that's what they were thinking. Right. Thinking that, Terry would flip instead of plead out. But, at the end of the day, they came out of the room. They cleared the air. And they both went in front of the judge and pled out.
Because, needless to say, in their defense, that was one of the probably most stressful days in their life.
Yeah. Well, they were looking at, if they went to trial and they were found guilty, they were looking at life in prison.
They would hit them because they tried them right. It's 848, right?
Yeah.
They tried them as kingpins, and that's life with no parole.
They cut the deal for 30 years, and they were like 35 when they cut the deal.
They were 35 when they cut the deal, so you plead out to 30. You're thinking to yourself,
they'll both be home in their 50s.
When it's all said and done, the worst case scenario, I'll do 20.
Yeah, so Terry did 15, came out at 50.
Right.
Meech is 52 right now.
Just got resentenced, right?
Got resentenced, so right now his out date's 28. So he'd come out at 59.
And he'll probably get a little bit out of there because halfway house and all the other things. But at the rate this BMF brand is going now, keeping them locked up may be counterproductive to the authorities.
Right. And giving Demetrius credit where credit's due, he's saying all the right things. Him and his inner circle in fact, I should say both him and Terry are saying the same thing, even if they're not saying it in lockstep. And that is they want to rebrand.
Yeah.
They want to take the BMF, the built-in brand recognition, and and we've heard this before, and it's not novel, but and flip the script and turn it into a community empowerment. And I've heard also people talk about Demetrius people talking about like a luxury lifestyle brand.
That's where just as a business guy, obviously
I know Meech's guy.
We'll talk because I know you can talk to him. I mean, we put together some money, a couple different things, but the night. I know
he's got plans for I don't want to be speaking out of school, but I know he's got plans for like a champagne. He's talking about
all the categories along lifestyle, influencer monetization type of thing.
Well, look at Terry. Just look at what Terry's doing right now.
That's huge. I think that's laid out for those guys.
Terry's already doing it. I mean, Terry's got his own weed brand, and you go to the dispensaries. They're promoting it.
Yeah.
They're upcharging the shit out of it. Yeah, I ain't paying $80 for an eighth.
In that space, look for some friends, for close family associates. Dime Shop, cannabis shop opening soon here in the Detroit area.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And then Little Meech just rolled one out.
We'll be plan on carrying. Actually, Terry's.
So it's called.
Shout out Dime Shop.
It's the first strand he came out with was called Black Magic, which was a nod to Frank Lucas and the Blue Magic.
Right.
And now he's got he just released 3 new strains to go along with the release of the show. One's called Death Before Dishonor, I know, and I can't think of the other two names, but maybe one's
keep you abreast on that.
One's Loyalty, one's Death Before Dishonor, and then I'm forgetting the third one. But another little piece of BMF trivia that a lot of people don't know, and this is part of Terry's branding actually, was so in 2004 when there's the split between Demetrius and Terry.
Right.
Terry rebranded, and it never really became public. Terry rebranded his crew the 263 group or 263 crew,
263.
which I think spells
Is that
out
the area code or something?
I'm not. I think it spells out something on a telephone pad.
Okay.
Related to BMF, and all of his branding now is 263.
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
So I guess between early 2004 to the end of 2005 when they were busted, Terry was not referring to his crew as BMF anymore and was referring to his crew as the 263 crew.
This is America. It's like El Chapo's daughter with the 708 clothing line. Falling back to the fact that her dad, El Chapo, was one time ranked the 708th richest man in the world, right? Now they got a company. It's all works for me, man. I'm happy about the whole thing.
So I'm just hoping that I get retained for the second season. I mean, I haven't heard anything, so I'm hoping my phone rings and they liked the job I gave them and valued me. It seemed like they did. So they got renewed for a second season of the show.
Mm-hmm. Ratings were good, right?
Ratings were off the chart.
So I would think you're coming back. You don't want to break up a winning team.
Again, yeah, but again, my contract was only for this first season and then the docuseries. So hopefully I'll get to be retained and come back here in a year from now and give you more insight on season 2.
All right, and so before we get out of here, though, we got
whatever. I still got some time.
All right, you got some other stuff going with some heavy hitters. Pesci, Stallone. What's happening with that crew?
Yeah, so I've been so lucky to. I was able to take a really negative situation, frankly, which was my involvement in the White Boy Rick film, which just was my dream come true. And it's like, be careful what you wish for.
You get it.
And my reporting and researching and writing and expertise gets optioned for a Hollywood film with Matthew McConaughey and $40 million budget for an adult rated R movie, which for people that don't understand Hollywood right now, that does not happen.
Right.
It's either a superhero movie that's with a $200 million budget, or it's an independent movie with a budget of $10 million or less.
Correct.
Nobody's making $30 million, $40 million adult-oriented pictures anymore. But there was so much confidence in this story. That's what we got. And again, it was just producers were all Academy Award-winning producers. I was so excited. I was running towards the project like my pants were on fire. I couldn't wait. And then it was 2.5 years of just discomfort and disharmony and just saw all the negative parts of Hollywood that you hear about. It's a viper's den, man.
But the pendulum has swung.
Right. So the reason I'm saying that is I made a lot of networking contacts through my initial delve into Hollywood and the entertainment industry, which was in 2015 when the White Boy Rick project got off the ground. Film came out in 2018.
Yep.
But from my relationship with Sony and meeting other people doing business out there, I've been able to parlay it into other projects, which are, it's really, you got to make, it's cliche. You got to make lemons out of lemonade.
Yeah, make lemons out of lemonade, man.
No, make lemonade out of lemons. Sorry.
There you go.
I don't know what I'm saying. So I got hired on right before the pandemic. I was hired by Balboa Productions, which is Sylvester Stallone's production outfit. And he wanted me to create source material for him for a television show, which is going to be a limited run exclusive series, 10 parts, most likely is going to be on HBO Max.
Okay.
We'll start.
Awesome.
Hopefully, we'll start shooting in spring or summer of 22. But it's produced and directed by Sylvester Stallone. Joe Pesci is his partner on this in a co-production deal with HBO Max. And then Pesci's also going to star or co-star in the picture or in the television series. And it's a true story of Greg Scarpa. For people that don't know who that is, Greg Scarpa was a sociopath, mob, enforcer, hitman out of the Colombo crime family in New York City, who was given a license to kill by the FBI and the CIA because he was a CIA asset and was working for both the CIA and the FBI from the early 60s into the early 90s. And they were taking him from Brooklyn and sending him like overseas to do like black ops. And when he would come back, they basically were like, "You've helped us so much in all these other endeavors, you have a license to kill." And he was getting help from the FBI to like track down his rivals. And it was a lot like Whitey Bulger, but even worse. And one of the most historically significant things that he did at the behest of the government, which is at the center of this television series, limited run series, was that if anybody saw the movie Mississippi Burning, which was based on the civil rights of the murders of three
James
Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Mickey Schwarmer.
I'm thinking of the law firm.
Yeah. And it was the summer of 1964, and the presidential election was coming up in the fall, and you had the leaders of the New York NAACP leaders of Young Democrats or something. These leaders of in New York, Drew Goodman and Mickey Schwarmer, were leaders of some type of social justice activist group in New York. They came down to Mississippi for the summer, not just for like a week, but they came down for the whole summer from May. I think they were juniors in college. And came down to Freedom Ride and to get work with the NAACP in Mississippi to get voters registered.
Right.
And James Chaney was the president of the junior NAACP in Mississippi. And the three of them were kidnapped and brutally murdered. And the case was eventually solved, and that's what Mississippi Burning is about. But you've up until about 10 years ago, when the FBI documents were finally declassified, you didn't know how they were solved. The Mississippi Burning gives you a very sanitized version of it.
Right. The Gene Hackman character in there, they do show using some,
and
shall we say, aggressive interrogation techniques.
Right. And in reality, the person that was using those aggressive interrogation tactics was Greg Scarpa, a.k.a. the Grim Reaper. That was his nickname on the street of New York. So the show is titled The Grim Reaper, and the first half of the show is going to take place in Mississippi in 1964, in the aftermath of the civil rights workers being murdered. J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI call for their ace in the hole, which is Greg Scarpa, who at the time is in his early 30s, and is rising up the ranks of the Colombo crime family underneath Joe Colombo and Carmine the Snake Persico. And they bring him down to Mississippi. He brings his teenage, he's married at that point, but he has a teenage girlfriend. Brings his 17-year-old teenage girlfriend down to Mississippi. They check into a hotel. He tells his girlfriend, sit tight for the next week or two. I'll be back periodically.
Yeah.
And gets deputized.
Down to
Mississippi, and they're basically like, do whatever you need to do to get us these bodies. So they needed to find the bodies.
Right.
And they needed to find who was responsible, which was the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
And interestingly enough, in the months before, you had a changeover in leadership in the Ku Klux Klan to this guy named Sam Bowers, who advocated for a fundamental shift in the way that the Ku Klux Klan did business. And he made a very famous, well, in the world of the Ku Klux Klan, famous speech in the months leading up to these civil rights slayings, where he said, we're done burning crosses on lawns, we're done walking around in pointy white hats. That's counterproductive. Right. We're going to blend in to society. We're going to infiltrate mainstream business. We're going to be stealth, and we're going to kill. He basically said, "What's the point of burning a cross? Like, wouldn't it be better to have 10 dead people to make your same point that you would make?"
Like,
So there was a campaign of violence that was unleashed in Mississippi over that summer, and it wasn't just those civil rights workers. The head of the president of not the junior NAACP, but the head of the NAACP in Mississippi was murdered, and one of the leading Jewish Jewish religious leaders in Mississippi was murdered. So there were 5 murders that summer tied to this Sam Bowers, who was more of a mafia don. He had a history with the Dixie Mafia, and he structured the Mississippi Ku Klux Klan in the format of a organized crime group than the traditional.
Now, do you guys unpack this guy in this story?
So Joe, there's rumors that Joe Pesci will be playing Sam Bowers.
Wow.
And we're in the process of casting the lead.
Wow, that's gonna be hot.
So the first half takes place in Mississippi, and then the second half takes place in New York when he comes home, and it's like he's playing with house money for the rest of his career in the mob because of what he had done. Just that alone, not to mention the stuff he had been doing overseas.
But breaking that Mississippi case solidified
Yeah.
his relationship with the government, which gave him his green light to go do whatever he needed to do.
And then he was at the center of the last big New York Mafia war in the 1990s was the Colombo Mafia War. It lasted from 91 to 94, and Greg Scarpa was one of the generals. And at the time, he was dying of AIDS, which is another part of the story where this guy was such a racist, which also adds context and nuance to the fact that he went down and helped solve these historic civil rights murders. But he was not someone who liked black people. He was a businessman, and was paid for it too. I mean, he was getting paid for all.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
But he had an ulcer and needed a blood transfusion, and refused to use blood from the hospital because he was worried it would be Hispanic or black or Jewish blood. He wanted Italian blood, so he had the members of his crew all give blood to see who he matched up with. He happened to match up with this guy named Billy Maley, who had a perfect match for the blood, but was also a drug user.
Oops.
And a heroin abuser.
Oops.
And gave him tainted blood. And the end of the story is if you saw Greg Scarpa in the 70s, he is the picture of masculinity and 6'2", 250 pounds, the hands, the size of ham hocks, and by 1994, when he's out in the street actively shooting other members of his crime family, he's down to like 110 pounds. He lost his eye in one of the shootouts in this war, and he's commanding like a brigade of mob soldiers, dying of AIDS, being tipped off by the FBI where his enemies were. Eventually, he gets arrested. The FBI gets outed, and then he died very shortly thereafter in prison. I think he only had to do about 6 months before he died. But it's been a passion project for Stallone. He's been trying to do a story about Scarpa for about 20 years.
Okay.
And hopefully this will
Coming home.
This will be the one. So.
Wow.
Sounds
Wow.
like a heavy story.
Only here, Big Boss. So you gotta have the right friends, fam, out there.
I'll give you
we
one
know-
anecdote, even though you didn't ask.
that?
But I like this. It shows you what to me. I'm so appreciative of someone like Sylvester Stallone giving me an opportunity to work with him and to meet him.
Rocky.
Right.
Shit. Say no more. Rocky.
Yeah.
Rambo. Right.
So this is what you just said, and I'm going to play off it. So we're on a Zoom call, and this is right at the early part of the pandemic. We're all on a Zoom call, and he's right in front of me on the Zoom, and they throw it to me, and they're like, "All right, Scott, breakdown for Sly, what you just wrote or whatever." And then I was like, "So what should I call you?" I was like, "Do you want me to call you Mr. Stallone? You want me to call you Sly?" He's like, "Scott, you can call me Rocky. You can call me Rambo. You can call me Sly. You can call me Mr. Stallone. Whatever you're comfortable with." I was like, awesome.
That is classic. What should you go with?
I've called him Sly a couple times, but I try to stay away from just addressing him.
All right. Wow. That's awesome, man.
That's cool.
So big things coming. We got some other stuff me and Mr. Burnstein are starting to work on. We will keep you guys abreast of these developments. As I've told you guys, 2022, it's a lot on the floor. On a unrelated but related note, because you know these things, because Scott is truly why he runs in the circle. He does one of America's premier, if not premier, crime historian and just library thesaurus of this life.
My friends call me Scoogle.
Scoogle.
Scott combined with Google.
Scoogle. Did we brand that yet? We got any?
Yeah, we gotta
get
trademark
some-
that.
Trademark that like now. My man, shout out to Eddie Baby at Instagram. Real True Street Crimes over on YouTube. He always refers to the member of the Gambino crime family that his dad met, that went by the name Doc.
Yeah,
and he refers to him to Doc Gambino, but that is not his name.
It's Carmine Lombardozzi.
Carmine
Lombardozzi
was
Doc.
What is who we?
Doc was the Gambino's main narcotics lieutenant, very close to Carlo Gambino, which might be a reason people might have called him Doc Gambino, because people might have thought he was his brother because they were always together. But
What's his name again?
Carmine Lombardozzi.
Got that, Eddie Baby? See, I do all that for you. But I mean, that's what my father and Eddie knew him by was Doc.
And Doc was, I believe Doc was at the Appalachian Conference too. That shows you how
big he was. So for those who don't know, Appalachian, that's what, 1957?
Yeah. It was
Like the famous
meeting.
meeting.
It was a meeting of all the Dons from America. They all went to upstate New York, and in the middle of the meeting, it got raided.
What was Bruno's full name?
Angelo Bruno from Philadelphia.
Okay.
That's different. It was a guy named Bruno was locked up. He worked with Doc. Jimmy Doc Bruno. I don't know what Bruno's last name was though.
I can check. I can go. I have files that give me the guys that were around.
They got locked up on the same case.
Okay.
On that same commission case.
Bruno. Well, the commission case would have been Bruno and Delicato.
He's a Gambino guy.
Well, he was a Bonanno.
Gambinos and Bonanos do some business together in the narcotics world?
Yeah, because the commission case took down all the top figures of all the major families.
Right.
So it wasn't like one. The commission case didn't target one family. It targeted all five, and the top three guys in all five families went down.
So it could have been very easily that Bruno, even though he was a Colombo, could have had a good relationship.
Bonanno,
Well, he was a Bonanno, could have had a good relationship
Gambino,
with a Gambino.
Well, John Gotti was doing business in the drug world with all the Bonanos. So, yes. Gotti was a Gambino.
That's very plausible.
Yeah.
It's very plausible.
But Doc Lombardozzi was a legend.
Doc Lombardozzi. That is who, when you hear us out there talking about Doc Gambino, that is the actual name of that individual, and he was all that he it's built up to be.
And we don't really have to go into why they called him Doc. I mean, he served them. He served everyone their pharmaceuticals.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? We got to bring you back, Scott. Thank you again for coming, man.
Please check out Gangster Report, me and Al Prophet's website and YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then if you get an opportunity, I got my own podcast called the Original Gangsters Podcast. I'm like, I gotta have Courtney come on sooner than later. And you get it wherever podcasts are consumed. We do it out of Cumulus Media, which is one of the big radio conglomerates. There are corporate backer or whatever, but you can get it at Apple, Spotify, wherever you find them. And we've produced about 55 episodes over 2 years.
All right, yeah, definitely, anytime.
And I'd love to have Courtney on, and I think your audience would appreciate it. And
check them out, fam.
The thing that the most recent one that we dropped that I was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done was about this. He was a cocaine cowboy, and his name was Monkey Morales, and he was one of the original cocaine cowboys in Miami in the early '80s. But he was also a CIA operative, and he was part of the Bay of Pigs and part of the Kennedy assassination, but was also one of the major cocaine traffickers in Miami in the late 70s, early 80s. And then he was murdered in 1982, and his son believes that it was a CIA hit.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, and if you've seen the Cocaine Cowboys on Netflix, Monkey Morales is a part of that.
The new one.
Both. He's in both of them.
He's in both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he was also a part of a great book. I'm going to shout out my guy Robin Farzad wrote a book called Hotel Scarface, which is all about where the cocaine cowboys used to party. And it was at the Mutiny, which was a famous boutique hotel in Coconut Grove. And that was, for people that love Scarface, that was the Babylon Club. And the Babylon Club was based on the Mutiny. And
Coconut Grove, of course, where University of Miami is at, and such and such.
And Hotel Scarface is now being developed into a Netflix scripted and unscripted show where Monkey Morales will be a character.
Wow, it's going down, Scott.
Yeah, so check out
that. You got your pulse on this thing.
Check out that interview with and
give him the info again.
Interestingly enough, Monkey Morales' son lives in Lansing.
Wow,
random. So it's the Original Gangsters Podcast. You can get it wherever podcasts are consumed, and then gangsterreport.com, and then Gangster Report on all the socials, and then you can get me on Facebook or Twitter. I need to get my Instagram on point.
Yeah, you gotta get on the gram.
Yeah,
you gotta get on the gram.
We're
just trying to get our gram game right.
I digress, but I got kicked off Instagram, not like I didn't get kicked off like where I did something wrong to be banned from it, but someone like hacked my profile, and I can't get back into my Instagram profile, and I can't call anyone at Instagram to fix it.
Lou gonna help you.
Yeah.
Lou gonna help you.
Yeah.
Lou gonna help you. Lou.
Well, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. Last thing, when you come back, two things. One of your favorite pieces of work I think you did, which is great. If you guys never checked out Detroit Mob Confidential.
Yeah, I can come back. I can come back as soon as you want. We talk about Italians.
Yeah, we talk. But the thing I found just fascinating about that was the educational level. What is the acronym that's used to describe the Detroit Mafia?
You mean it's not an acronym, but the partnership or the combination.
The combination, all right.
But I think what you're saying is very true. That there's no crime family in the history of the American Mafia that had an edict from the first generation to the second generation saying you ain't coming into the family business unless you go get a college degree.
Yeah, I mean, and how that has allowed the Detroit family to.
So all the second generation guys, the guys that were leading the family from, let's say, the 50s into the 2000s when they all started to die off, they were all diversified. They all had college business degrees. and from esteemed universities, Notre Dame.
Yeah, they weren't going to. They weren't going to
Michigan, Syracuse.
Yeah, they weren't.
And then just like we were talking about Black Mafia family having a CFO, the Detroit Mob had Big Mike Polisi, who had accounting degrees from Syracuse University, and did all their finances.
Yeah. So we're gonna chop it up.
Thanks,
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.
I'll let your man. If you're on YouTube, hit like, share, subscribe. You only get it like this. We put it down. Big Boss Filmworks making it happen. Motown Mafia podcast. Got more coming.
Shout out to my dog Chunky, my 4-month-old bulldog who I have to go take to his graduation for his obedience class.
So we love animals here too on this platform. Love me, bulldog. I want one actually. We got Carl Martin coming back soon too. You need to sit down. I know you.
I would love to meet Carl Martin.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Please.
I know you followed that.
Yes.
That whole thing with Ed Martin and so.
I put a book proposal out. I shouldn't say I didn't put it out. I thought about putting a book proposal out, and it never. It died on the vine. But I have about 50 pages of a project that I.
No, I think we're gonna put that together. Yeah, we're gonna
show them.
Let's put that together next week if we can before the
Let's do it.
holidays. So a lot of stuff coming. We got some of the PA crew.
People have no idea. I'm sorry. People have no idea if Chris Webber would have gone to trial, what would have come out. There was because I've talked to the FBI agents that work, and I'm sure Carl can.
Yeah, but that's gonna be hot when we get you guys there.
I know there's so much stuff that never made it out to the public that would have come out at a trial.
Okay. All right, it's going down. We're gonna get you guys together ASAP. All kind of stuff coming. Once again, thank you guys. Make sure you hit like and share and subscribe. You find us. Where can they find us at, Lou?
You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us obviously here on YouTube. And we're working on going on the smaller social networks as well.
All right, there it is. I'll let you, man. CRB Jr. signing out. Big Boss Filmworks doing what we do. I'll let you, man. Peace.
Peace.
I like that.
That was awesome, man.
Yeah, that's hot. It was just time to really tell a great untold Detroit story because it kind of covers Detroit at its zenith.
Very interesting story.
We decided that we were going to make a movie.
All right, Rich Rossi with you with Motown Mafia. I'm with Courtney.
Louis Stevens,
Courtney Brown.
Courtney Brown Jr.
And Alan Al Prophet Bradley.
And this is an entrepreneurial, inspirational story too because again, I'm a real estate retail guy. That's what my skill set is. But I'm a businessman, so I was like, we're gonna do it. Sometimes when you got a dream, you won't have all the answers on how you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
What made this one unique was not so much the crime, but the intertwining with Detroit's history and the Motown era and kind of the economic decline of Detroit. And it's really the story of a family. And from some perspectives, it's has a happy ending, like you said. For others, it didn't have a happy ending.
Right.